I found Joel Goldsmith's teaching very endearing, very close to the principles of Advaita. The tenet of his teaching was to give up the belief in two powers, good and evil. In other words, God and a selfhood apart from God. And as Rameshji would say, all there is the source. You see, because if there is this concept of God and the devil, the question is then who created evil? Who created the devil? Now, according to Rameshji's teaching, the original sin of Advaita is when an object in manifestation becomes the pseudo subject and starts passing judgment on another object. So let's say I criticize someone. I have assumed the role of the subject and pass judgment on the object that I criticize without realizing that I too am an object in manifestation like the other. And the only subject is the one true subject. So, the polaric ends of subject-object, good and evil, when these are being constantly called out, exposed, so to speak, we see that they arrive at the same point, which is the total acceptance of God's will. And so I find that these two teachings are so close in spirit to each other, because what happens is, with the total acceptance of the will of God, with the giving up of personal doership, the point which is reached is the point of peace. I'd like to read out a couple of sentences of Joel Goldsmith, since it is in such fresh vocabulary compared to what one has been reading out so much of Rameshji, Nisargadatta Maharaj, very beautifully expressed, which I felt like sharing. This is like a kind of a meditation where Goldsmith talks in first person and says, I consciously withdraw power from the outer realm and place it where it belongs, in consciousness. Or as he would say, God is the only power. This is another beautiful expression. Have we ever received any benefit from another except the benefit of consciousness? Is it not a person's consciousness that blesses us? What part of me has ever blessed any student except my consciousness of truth? What part of him have I known except his consciousness, his love for truth, his love for spirit? We are one in consciousness, and one we will ever be, as long as our interest is in truth, spirit, God, consciousness. And as You are perhaps familiar, Rameshji's favorite sentence was, "Consciousness is all there is." And this whole point of distilling it and bringing it down to peace of mind in daily living, something which is generally considered too trivial on the spiritual path, something that is overlooked as being too basic, too simple. I found that Joel Goldsmith echoed this throughout his letters and lectures, this emphasis on peace. And here's a beautiful passage. Our prayer is a peace be still, a silent communion, even unto that storm at sea. The Master never prayed that it be dispelled, referring to Jesus. His only prayer was, be still. Was he addressing the waves? No. He was addressing his consciousness and the consciousness of his disciples. Peace, be still. If our consciousness is still, there are no stormy waters within or without. If our consciousness is still, everything about us takes on the complexion of that stillness. And so we find that the deliverance of even Joel Goldsmith's teaching is peace of mind in daily living.